question. Who here has ever been asked before, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What do you want to be when you grow up? Or what's next after you finish your degree? I saw loads of no's and loads of hands being raised. Great. But I feel like it's one of those questions that it feels bad. Like, it feels like we're almost being tested. Like, we're supposed to have our entire lives planned out. And somehow, everyone else got the instruction except for us. I first came across this question during the pandemic, when I was binge watching talks on YouTube trying to spend my time more productively, although I doubt it helped. But what stuck with me wasn't the question, it was the answer. So I paused the video, grabbed my phone, and wrote it down on my notes app. That was about 5 years ago today. And that answer has genuinely reshaped the way I think about work, about ambition, and about moving forward. And I'll tell you why in just a moment. During the pandemic, our life felt small. Our world shrank. Routines disappeared. Time stopped behaving normally. And days started blending in together. Weeks passed by with no landmarks. And suddenly the idea of a 5-year plan felt almost laughable. Not because we didn't care about the future, but we couldn't see it. We didn't know what next term would look like, next month, next year. Some of us were trying to stay motivated. Some of us were pretending like it never happened. And some of us were celebrating small victories like replying to an email, going to a 9 a.m. lecture, or putting some actual clothes. But back then, I wasn't thinking about who I wanted to become. I was thinking about my deadlines, about not falling behind, wondering if everyone else had found a better way to cope than I had. Ultimately, most days felt like improvising. And with all that uncertainty around us, something subtle started to happen. I had to let go of the idea of having a perfect plan. When I couldn't see the future in front of me, I had to let go of the idea of trying to solve for it all at once. I just need to focus on one thing. What was the next small step I could take? What was the next thing I could do that I could actually control? Coming out of that period, I started noticing something about how the world moves around us. We're constantly surrounded by signals. What success is supposed to look like, how quickly you're supposed to get there. This unobtainable expectation to be perfect at all times, to have everything figured out from the get-go. We live in a society where we're constantly watched, judged, compared. Especially late at night when you're scrolling on your phone, telling yourself just 5 more minutes, and then suddenly everyone else looks widely successful by the age of 25. Through social media like LinkedIn or Instagram, or through achievements like grades, prizes, awards, published papers. And slowly, we start to assume that everyone else must feel confident, and I'm the only one who doesn't. Ordinary is not a dirty word. It's not an insult, and is definitely not a failure. Ordinary is a starting point. Before anything remarkable happens, something very unremarkable needs to happen first. An application you almost didn't submit. A first draft no one will ever see. A beginner class where you were clearly the worst one there. But that's not failure. That's the doorway. That's when I started noticing and learning something about myself. What stopped me the most often wasn't a lack of ability or a lack of motivation. It was this feeling that made me stop and being like, no, I have to have everything figured out before I even start. This feeling, called perfectionism, some of you might know it, but it's not the kind that makes you care about quality. It's the kind that stops you dead in your track and you feel like you can't move forward until you're 100% certain of what you're going to do before you even start. At times like these, I like to refer back to a quote from a book called The Artist's Way. The quote says, "Perfectionism doesn't protect creativity, it kills it." Because perfectionism requires certainty before you even begin, whereas creativity requires movement. So if you wait until everything is perfect, then you've never given the chance for creativity to ever exist. Curiosity works differently. Curiosity doesn't ask certainty for you. Curiosity just asks one question. What if? What if I apply, even if I don't think I will get in? What if I give this a try, just for 6 months? What if I step outside of my comfort zone, even just for a little bit? What's the worst thing that could happen? A rejection? So what? Then you would be exactly where you are now today, except this time, you know you showed up. Somewhere along the line, as we grow older, we started to judge our interest and hobby. And we started to think, will this help in my career? Will this look impressive on my CV? Is this worth my time? Curiosity won't answer any of those questions. And it rarely comes with a plan or a purpose. Curiosity is kind of like building Legos. It's there to make you learn about what do you enjoy, what drains you, what energizes you, what is willing to go through discomfort for. Because curiosity is learning more about yourself. For example, a curiosity of mine is to write a book. Not because I have a plan or I know where it will take me, just because I'm curious to see what would happen if I took it just a little bit more seriously. Because curiosity doesn't distract you from progress. It's often how progress begins. I was curious as a kid about sciences. This is why now I'm doing a PhD. I was curious about sports, about seeing what my body could do. Now I'm a marathon runner. None of these started with a clear plan. I didn't have an idea for them. I just was a bit curious and willing to be a bit uncomfortable, or maybe a lot. But they just started with the idea of wanting to challenge myself and be curious, because curiosity didn't require for me to have confidence or experience or certainty. It just required for me to start. My research is about bone and tissue regeneration, how the body heals itself. And the body doesn't heal itself by going back to how it was. It rebuilds differently. Scar tissue will form, structures will adapt. Because growth isn't just restoration, growth is about the transformation that you're going through. And that's often how it is for us too. You don't go back to who you were before being a certain. You become stronger in the process. About a year ago, I ran my first marathon. My first and only marathon, let me tell you. The Athens Marathon, the authentic route. If you had told 18-year-old me that one day I would run a marathon, I would have laughed in your face. Back then, I couldn't run for more than 2 minutes without being out of breath. But this wasn't a sudden transformation. I didn't wake up one day being like, yes, today I am running a marathon. No, quite the opposite, actually. I just got curious, and I downloaded Couch to 5K, which, if you don't know, is an app that teaches you how to go from your couch to running a 5K. But even though it was hard, I showed up. Some days I didn't want to train because it was raining all day long. Or some days I was wondering even, why did I even sign up to this? And some days I was so slow that runners were lapping me multiple times on the track. But I showed up. And as I showed up, something started shifting in me. Not my speed, but my belief in what I could endure. Because a marathon wasn't just 42 kilometers. A marathon was 1,000 of small decisions to keep going, 1,000 of small steps to keep going. When we look at people we admire, leaders, pioneers, Nobel Prize winners, friends, colleagues, family, we tend to think that they must have had everything figured out, that they knew they were set up for greatness. But in reality, they rarely do. As Einstein once said, "I have no special talent. I am only passionately curious." Because for anything extraordinary to happen, something very unremarkable happens first. And it starts with ordinary people, just like all of you here today, taking a small step into the unknown, doing something that might be just a little bit uncomfortable. And often, these are what are the turning points in your life. And they will sound something like, "I'll give this a try, even if I don't think I'll like it. Why not? My friend is going. I'll tag along. Maybe I'll enjoy it." Or, "I'll give myself 6 months. What's the worst that could happen?" And often, these quiet decisions and these quiet questions about yourself is what end up changing our lives. So, do you remember the question I asked you at the beginning of this talk? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? I thought this question needed a clear answer, a plan, a destination. But in reality, here's what I wrote on my phone. It's not what I want to be, but who I want to be in 5 years. Because life isn't about knowing everything before you even begin. Life isn't about having all your problems solved before you can even think about them. Life is about figuring out who you want to be as you move forward. But today, I don't want to leave you with this question. It's a very loaded question. I want to leave you with a smaller question. What are you quietly curious about, but haven't given yourself the time or the chance to take seriously? And what would happen if you gave yourself just half a day? Heck, even half an hour. Not to get it perfect or to get everything figured out, but just to start. Even if it is imperfectly, just to start today. In fact, let's make this real. I'd like for all of you to take the next 10 seconds and make a mental note in your head. What is something you're quietly curious about? Something you've heard from the previous talks, maybe, or from the future ones to come. You can think about those too. But what is something you're quietly curious about? And write it down mentally in your head. You don't have to explain to anyone or tell anyone. But that's how an idea starts to become a reality. You need to write it down and materialize it. Because an idea is only an idea until you take an action. And that's what I want to leave you with today. Do it. Even if you have to do it scared, do it. Because that's how an idea will become your reality. Thank you very much.